equal numbers of ladies and gentlemen, scholarships are opportunities. Right? These are the channels that people use in order to realize their potentials. Because at the end of the day, there are a great number of people who have tremendous potential within them, but lack of some means in order to realize their potentials. Right? And but we must understand that scholarships are financial supports, they are grants, and it is a form of and there is a process when it comes to granting this sort of benefit or this sort of opportunity, because it's not something that corporations or development can extend to everyone, right? So there is a limitation when it comes to scholarships, and they do undergo a process in order to ensure that the person gets it, is really deserving of it, right? So it goes through a process of interviewing the person, perhaps testing them, checking on their background, to ensure that they are deserving of these things. But the problem is that humans are the people who undergo this process. They are the ones who structure the data process that in the end decides who gets a scholarship. So at the end of the day, there will always be a perception when it comes to who are the people who deserve the scholarship. And we find that in the sectors of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, places where these sectors which are really male-dominant fields, we believe that there is still a perception in society, people, that they believe that men are more suited to these jobs. That this is a sector that if you have a woman, is a unique woman, right? But at the same time, it's not exactly a level playing field for both men and women. They find that at the end of the day, men are more naturally more technical skills to them, which ensures that they are the better candidate in order to accept more deserving of scholarship. That as in that they are the ones who contribute better, they can make better use of scholarships as compared to women. Like perception that really that stems from this sort of patriarchal society that already is really at a disadvantage to women, right? So at the end of the day, what actually happens is that these women do not get the same sort of opportunity. Finally, this sort of perception really limits the number of women who can be employed in the first place. Thereby, the perception that women are not good because they're simply not in the great amount of numbers in that field. The initial entrance point in order to enter always be because women are not good in the first place. In this case, is where they can have challenges of perception. And we can preempt several things coming from side opposition activities on which I say that the reason to allow for randomized equal opportunities irrespective of gender is because you don't want the quality to be compromised, and that perhaps you don't want the government to intervene in this population. You see that in these cases, the quality will not be compromised simply because the scholarships are limited and you have a large number of applicants who will apply for these scholarships. You can see that at the end of the day, when you separate it into a quota, we set a quota in the sense that the corporations have to give equal opportunities of the scholarships for men and women, right? So that the number of applicants will surely ensure that the quality of the people who apply who receive the scholarships are of the best in the respective genders.
Now, we can institute things like anti-discrimination policies when it comes to granting scholarships. We can also make sure it's based on pure merit. So, based on pure merit, why can't women be able to access this scholarship?
Because at the end of the day, when you see two people, two people who have equal capabilities, equal potential, at the end of the day, the perception will lead towards men because people there are and I don't like this connected notion that even though it's in terms of science and mathematics and whatnot, the men will be better at leading, or they will be able to contribute more to society because they're the men. That's not a perception that you cannot distribute, that you cannot even if people are sort of anti-discriminatory policies into this sort of thing. Right? So we want to looking at two society. Right? First, on how the sort of society challenges the perception that women are always affected in this field. And secondly, on how the great implications of these sort of opportunities give these women after the completion of the degree. Right? So first and foremost, I want to talk about leaders' opportunities in the first place, right? Where you can never equalize the field of legal level because of this perception that men are always better. Women will always be seen as the second option, right? Where you can see that in these cases, the progress of women, their capabilities are always compromised because at the very start, they're not allowed. They will never get the equal opportunity and the equal assessment in terms of the potential diversity. Because even if they are equal, women will always be seen as being slightly better in those cases. So you can see that when it comes to these sort of assessments that people make regarding people, they will at the end of the day look at the gender as well. Right? They say that in this case, the conditions will never change. You can never get the field, which is largely male dominated, to change again. Right? But aside from that, we want to talk to you about what are the main implications of these things. Because usually when corporations give this form of scholarship, they also offer job opportunities after the completion of the degree. But you can see that this actually provides a direct channel or an opportunity, a job opportunity for the women in order to enter into the business corporations, business sectors, which are also largely male-dominated in the sense, right? Because you see that these higher forms of corporate seats are at this moment really the majority of the people are men. That's a continuation of the progress of the effects that the scholarships have on these women. You can see that even that these other largely male-dominated sectors can be changed. You actually allow for these women to get these also job opportunities through the scholarships, right? And at the end of the day, they will the perception that men are better leaders simply because they are naturally born with those sort of things can be to a certain extent challenged, right? So you can see that because of the conservative nature, because of the existing patriarchal mindset that at the end of the day, when you have equal potential, equal skills, equal capabilities, at the end of the day, they want out of men simply because they are a natural born leader. We can find that that's sort of can be challenged because at the end of the day, you finally allow for these women to go there and prove to the society that they can do something and challenge themselves. With that being our purpose. Thank you, Dia. Let's have a flash. We don't follow your composition. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, giving the same treatment to both genders regardless of anything, right? It's not the way to achieve gender equality, and we believe that under our side, our paradigm is able to achieve a better gender equality as well as we are able to remove the stigmatization if we allow this scholarship to be granted based on the meritocracy, right? So the entire opening government case is run on the basis where they assume that because it's female, they are not given a fair ground to have this scholarship, right? So we are supposed to bring them into this scholarship or grant them this free opportunity to go into science and technology because they need it. But that's not the case because we believe that if we are so concerned about the participation of female in this science and technology, policy and democracy, and company will always want that in the best favor of companies to have people who is really enthusiastic and passionate about science and technology. So moving on to my first, before moving on to my substantive, I am going to tell you
I'm going to move on with my rebuttal. So the thought that social perception of males is that they can better contribute to the society, but that's not true. Generally, males get the slot because they are able to show their enthusiasm and passion in science and technology. That's why this kind of company they will consider giving this scholarship through a tedious process to men. But moving on to my substantive, I'm going to tell you why is it detrimental to female. My first level of analysis is to tell you the steps of us achieving gender equality. So gender equality is not achieved in one day or two, right? It's gone through a process of a tedious process of first started with the welfare, that we grant these female physiological needs so that they are not being their survival or their life is not at risk. So with that, only we are able to ensure that these female are able to sustain. So the second level is about the access, which is to grant these female the access towards the education, towards their rights, towards their healthcare system, and all those. So this is to ensure that they are able to gain rights of individuals. So moving on, which is the essence of today's debate, which is about the conscientization of the entire society. So side opposition, we believe that conscientization should always stop the participation when it comes to gender equality, is because when we have this conscientization, when we are able to achieve social recognition, when we have this social recognition, people will no longer stigmatize this female, and with that, only we are able to gender equality. So the next step that we are able to achieve gender equality is about participation. It's where we involve this female into our system, into our industry, so that they are able to sustain on themselves. So, and the last step, which is the ultimate step of gender equality, is about the control. It's about them being able to make decisions on themselves. So, on the second level of analysis, I'll tell you how it would not achieve or remove the stigmatization of patriarchy. Is that when you force this participation before conscientization of the society, right? The society fails to recognize the need or the pressure or the need or the reason why they should appreciate females. So when this kind of stigmatization or this kind of notion is not solved before you involve this female into our industry, what would happen is that this society would always question or always be suspicious about the credibility of this female. So when you have these doubts and this credibility, society would never really think about the credibility of female when it comes to this kind of science and technology or this kind of corporate world, right? Because they will always think that these women, they are brought in because of the sympathy towards them, and it's not because of the meritocracy, it's not because of the appreciation or they should be treated that way. On the third level of analysis, I'll tell you why it is detrimental to the development of female as a whole. Before that, yes.
In terms of their credibility, they can be enhanced while they are proven themselves for achievements in their contribution.
But the thing is, you are not allowing them to prove themselves, because right now when you have this quota system, right, and I'm going to tell you in my third level why these females generally have this intrinsic property of not being interested in science and technology. But before that, assuming that these females, they are not intrinsically interested in science and technology, right? When you have this quota, you are lowering down your status or your standards towards this female just so you can fulfill the quota. So we don't see that this is a reason why you can justify to the world, right? They are getting this scholarship because of merits, because of they are capable of doing that. So moving on, which is my third level of analysis. So gender roles and its intrinsic property that's embedded in our society itself make these women a very natural trait, because they are more observant, or they have the gender personalities that guys generally do not have, because of gender roles. Since we are young, we were taught that males are supposed to get involved in sports or get involved in science, right? And girls are supposed to be gentle, to be thoughtful, or to be observant. So it's because of this notion, right? Girls generally do not develop this interest of developing stuff or science and technology generally, since they were very young. So when this kind of interest is not being cultured since the very get-go, what would happen is that they would not have this interest towards the science and technology. So when you offer this scholarship to them, right, you kind of give them a confusion that of what they really want in life, because these female, they are not. When you it's a societal norms that this kind of science and technology is always for men, right? So when these women they choose to take science, right, could be partly because of the reason they want to prove themselves and they just want to tell the world that they are actually stronger. But deep down inside their heart, they are not really interested in doing science and technology, but just to prove that they are able to do so. And it's a free scholarship, right? So why not give it a try? So when they actually enter into this science and technology world with this scholarship, you do not ensure a fair ground of self-actualization to these people, because in the first you tell them or you give them an informed choice about this scholarship. So to sum it up, what have I to say? Tell you how by quota system we are able to remove the stigmatization of the society on this aspect. We opposition will tell you clearly that when you have this women force brought into this industry, right, you are not removing the stigmatization. Instead, you are increasing the suspicion or the doubts of the society towards the values of these women. So without this women, they are proud of course.
We find opening opposition is very discriminatory towards women itself. The mere fact that they actually came out and tell you that the moment you open more quota to women in this corporation, you are going to compromise the quality of the people in the corporation, understand that? Because under what we believe as a government is that we believe that women and men, both in the society, they have equal ability, equal potential in this sense. But the main thing is, if you came out and tell you that the moment you have more women, it's going to compromise quality of cooperation. It's going to compromise quality in society. This is the kind of mindset where we openly govern minds and counter this because we believe that under current status quo, the society mindset where understand men are better than women, men are performing better than women, and men are more interested in engineering compared to women. And just look at in engineering faculties, you can see most of them are men instead of women. Right? This is the form of mindset we have. But we believe that because of this mindset we have, it contributes towards the discouragement towards women participating, which in the end is harming society, which I'll explain more in our But going to his argument in this page, right? He has mentioned about, in the first place, he mentioned about credibility in the first place. Right? Under our paradigm, we believe that in the sense of credibility, at the end of the picture, under our paradigm, it's going to be powered as well. Now, because in the end, right, under our paradigm, in the end, they still have each category of you still have the things still have to compete amongst a lot of the others, right? Where the quality is still there. Because of having the quantity existing in this category, the quality is still can be assured under our paradigm. We believe that that's the first thing. And second, even under the sense of credibility, right? When we have this kind of quota to give the opportunity and give the encouragement towards women to participate more instead, right? You can this kind of credibility when he, let's say, a student under this paradigm, this kind of credibility can still be recovered in the end when you have given yourself, when you have given them a chance in the first place. Rather than having a status quo, most of them don't even have a chance or opportunity or even encouragement to do so, right? This is what I believe in the end, right? And moving on. Based on what the opening government believe in the university is that what the question is the real gender equality only can be achieved when you have everything just the competition as it is right now, right? But what the opening government believe for real gender equality to be achieved, right? When you have equal quantity offered to them, where you have equal chances, equal opportunity provided to them. That's the only time where gender equality can be achieve, right? This is what we believe in the first place. I'm going to explain more on the trade-off and the benefits from our side, or even the harm from their side, furthermore, and what they just need to do.
In based on the transition that is so big, that there's absolutely no chance of winning. And your policy need a large number of females to create that. It's sure if I actually there's more women. How does merit affect this?
That's the problem with the status quo now. It's not that the fact that there's zero number of women. It's just that number is very little. And what's the problem here is that having those kind of perspectives, like I said, is discouraging women from participating. Because the perspective of the society is that women are better in making handicraft games or even cooking or even saying those kind of perspectives are the perspective which is stopping the women from actually participating in STEM or even studying under the category of STEM in the first place. This is why I believe that under current status quo, even if you have a system where these women are being discouraged from even joining in the first place, it's not going to help. The only way of you going to help the situation is by having providing a equal opportunity, by having the government stepping in, showing a stance, saying that we believe in equality, gender equality, we believe in the ability of women in the sense of STEM or even such engineering and science and so on. When you have the government stepping in towards the operation, that's the only place where the effects can begin. What we have now is not going to take place because in the first place, very few women participate, even those who are interested, who might be discouraged from joining it. So on the argument of trade-off, where under that paradigm, it kind of talk about the credibility by compromise of the quality and overall. But when we look at the picture, what the open government is championing for is the progression of feminism and the overview result how it's going to benefit corporation itself and the country itself, right? So in certain cases, we do acknowledge at the starting point of this kind of policy, they might have a slight oppose or even compromisation of the corporation and so on and everything that comes with freedom of trade. I believe that under this lens, the intervention of government is totally valid when we believe that we have this kind of perspective which is part of the society, which is the perspective of men are better than women. Right? So we believe that first of all, intervention is valid in the first place. But second of all, let's look at the overview of the result. Look at the trade-off in the end, right? Compromisation versus the progression of feminism, right? First of all, like how my parents have told you, the compromise quality is very, very small, minute, and not distinct at all. But when we look at the benefit, it's way, way much better and covered towards this kind of legal harms, right? Because having scholarship given to more women, that means we are here to acknowledge the ability of women instead. So this is the way, this action taken by the government is directly deterring the mindset of the society in that men are better than women in engineering. So taken by the government, showing to the society of such, of course the society would be leaning towards this mindset. Society would lean towards the mindset of comparison of ability men and women. And so after that, of course it will lead to the progression of feminism in the minds of society. Right? So from here, what can we get? What kind of benefit would it give to the operation in the country? On the first level analysis, it's going to utilize the human capital of both men and women in the corporation and both in the society as well, right? Because you have both of them, letting both of them to become equal, you can encourage more of them to actually take part. You're making sure they are not being discouraged because of the perspective of the society in the first place. Right? On second level is that having government or country championing the idea of feminism. Of course, the country itself would definitely benefit from it. Other than utilizing the human capital, of course, it comes to relation of country or Indonesian country. Sharing the same vision to most of the first world countries. In the end, India, of course, would benefit more, it would create more, and of course, it's going to work. And in the end, what we believe is that the benefits coming from our side is going to deter the perspective of the society towards the gender inequality, and then it's going to benefit the society.
Ladies and gentlemen, the opening government's fight for equality as though we are also running both sides are running. However, to achieve that particular participation of women inside the working area or inside the process of science and technology does not work with just participation. We believe, right, for women to make the informed choice of either opting for science and technology are also important. The main problem that we see even in developed countries where women do not want to go into science and technology field is mainly due to the reason that they are not interested or they are not informed of this particular criteria that are in science and technology. They are being conformed to the gender stereotypes that are presently inside the country. So our main problem is to break that gender stereotype. And that doesn't work by just giving quotas. Because when you give quotas, you make society question the very merit of the woman itself. Like, for example, even with Canada having 50-50 amount of females and males in their Congress, doesn't prove or doesn't make society feel as though that they are party for feminism. No, it creates tension that makes the society think of whether this woman deserves to be in this particular field. That is precisely what we're trying to bring. So, moving on to several analysis of how first my reference came up and say that it's the important choice of the woman itself. The woman doesn't have enough capability in the status quo to compete with males in the science technology sector. So what we see is the problem is that women just do not want to operate. So moving on to my first point is that first, it happens the productivity of science and technology. Okay, but before that,
do you believe that there are not enough qualified women in society to accept a scholarship instead?
I do believe that there are a number of qualified women, and that number is still at a minimum that cannot compete with the number of males that are a particular number. Males dominate the science and technology field. Yes, however, the amount of women in the science and technology field are qualified, they do have merit in that particular sector. What they try to do is that the number of females and males will be the same. However, the merit of the field in that particular sector, we are not ready to have that equality, which is not equal in terms of merit. We want the females to have enough merit to be able to compete with males in that particular sector. So what does it do to the productive development of the scientific field? You have people of lesser and the distinction between the two sexes intensifies, as the men in that particular sector are already above the women in that sector. And going on with the status quo that females are generally discouraged to go towards the science technology era is problematic enough. So what we need is to create incentives of how to encourage women. That does not work with just providing quotas. You recognize or you make society see women as someone as a group of people that needs to be victimized. But no, what we're trying to do is create a pedestal for women to even acknowledge or to even go to the idea that I can really works, right? When you concentrate on getting that particular group of people to form, we don't see that giving quotas in form of political action. We do believe that once a female are generally informed on the types of industrial kind of sectors that are available in the particular field, then yes, you can go on with. But quotas doesn't. It just dampens not just the productivity of science technology, but it creates a society that questions the validity of the females. Going on right to this now. The main issue is that the females are not inclined to go to that particular field, which leads to the participation is up to a certain limit. It doesn't achieve the equality between genders. It just creates a more distinct differences between the females and the males in that field. So, in going on to a further analysis, that the second sex, which are females, will always be seen as a second sex. And going on to the question of why they are interested in science and technology is because the intrinsic property and social norms is because of the main reason why they are not exposed to science and technology. It's not because of the companies that do not want to hide the mentality of the entire that doesn't think the psychology are for that. So even if you create quotas, it doesn't break the gender stereotypes that are interestingly involved in the whole development of the society. But yes.
In this current status quo, when women leaders are being discouraged, when the participation of women in STEM is so low, how the marriage system is some really good when there's no participation of women?
There are the status quo that there are participation of women, but that it is at a minimum level. However, society now are not ready to make it on equal grounds because the merit of women will be lower than the merit of men. So how does this reach equality in terms of productivity in a particular sector, ladies and gentlemen? And moving on, just for the sake of achieving equality, it is being created quotas. This is not for the sake of opposing gender stereotypes. So what in developed countries, right? They need to have that encouragement to break free from gender stereotypical concept. And also, yes, how will we change the government doesn't do anything about it? Ladies and gentlemen, what the government should have done is to try to improve the information that the females need to have. To see that yes, there are certain things that we can do. What you're doing right now in their paradigm is that you are pressurizing the females to opt for this certain field. What happens when you have people among participants, or you have people among scholarships and hiring jobs, right? The amount of females that try to go to this particular field, they're not particularly interested in this field. They just go on just for the sake of getting a scholarship, or just because I'm hired in this particular field. You create incentives to these particular people because you believe that they can achieve better. However, in our paradigm, the women in our community itself are not encouraged or do not feel inclined to go to this particular field. Science and knowledge also, because of the male dominancy. However, with quotas as high as it does not solve or it does not break the gender stereotypes that we have today. And it's because of particular reasons achieving gender equality is through them having access to information is required, and not just because of the sake of victimizing the of things. Thank you again for having open the closing matters today. Contrary to popular belief, oppression is not merely because of men or certain arenas of our own society limiting women. Because in this case, in this century, women are not open to go into sciences, but there seems to be a problem with letting them step into the door. Sometimes women themselves are creating limitations for themselves. That's why you call it self-oppression. Despite the fact that there are already avenues present in society for them to go into these courses without them being banned, there's still a problem with their presence in that certain arena of STEM. The issue now is, ladies and gentlemen, when all doors have already been opened, we have finished step one, but how do we convince them to take the step in? And that's where side government takes this debate. It's because coming from our side, we'll be telling you how certain scholarships become an incentive for them to act and why it's not necessarily illegal. In response to the point made by the deputy, she told us that incentives provide pressure, but in the first place, she never told us, is that certain pressure bad to begin with? Because are we pressuring them into doing something that might be harmful to their body? Are we pressuring them into doing something that will not give them any benefits of the future? I don't believe so. And secondly, other scholarships, besides for those for STEM, are usually available, ladies and gentlemen. Therefore, we're not pushing them into a wall to just go to STEM. There are also other scholarships available. What we're trying to do here is we're opening as many avenues as we can in order to cater equal opportunities for both sexes, men and females. Because we believe that gender equality needs the cooperation of both sexes, ladies and gentlemen. We find it horrible the moment that they tell us that the reason why women are doing the sciences is because they consider that there are traditional norms that dictate the action of women and why they're less likely inclined to go into the sciences. But presented no to change that kind of perception of no individuals in the society. They presented no solution whatsoever to change the mindset of individuals, especially females, that they are sufficient and they can still benefit from science courses. They also fail to realize
realizing this is wrong. The corporations are also a big avenue in this debate. They did not even tell us why it's just for these corporations to be compelled into creating this sort of mandatory 50-50 allocations for men and women. And we'll be providing that later. When they told us that corporations should base on merit and not gender, because they think that the moment we open doors 50-50 for male and female, more likely than not, women who are less accomplished will not be prioritized because of the slots. However, we don't see that possible. Because what we think when we talk about the merit and quality of these people, when you're talking about scholarships, ladies and gentlemen, they are not given to any female or male jobs by the office. They undergo tests, they are presenting their CVs, and they are there for interviews, assuring that the quality of females is just as good as those who are better than hired, who are actually male. But we introduce the only difference here is that we introduce a policy of hiring capable people from both sexes on equal levels to assure equal opportunities, diversity, and incubation that can be beneficial for the company in itself as well. The problem of women not being good enough, yet hired because of their law, doesn't exist anymore, ladies and gentlemen, because these people are the most successful pass for the scholarship. That's a really valid checks and balances already. But before that, yes, sir.
Look, scholarships to a STEM are already open to women. But don't you think there is a harm when the state explicitly says that women need help to get into STEM?
The rare reason why we have the gender gap index is trying to think about the 4 areas in our world wherein there are certain gender qualities that are happening. That's why, ladies and gentlemen, that certain corporations need to take a vote in order to make that gender gap smaller and smaller each and every day. Because if you try to base it on the gender gap index, the countries who are less likely to have gender inequalities are actually more percent, are actually performing better than these certain nations with very big gender inequalities within them as a whole. So therefore, companies playing a role in promoting gender equality will help the nation all together. And that's a benefit that we're trying to present here through giving equal opportunities to these men and women who both equally capable, ladies and gentlemen. But we conceded to traditional norms, and they conceded that the limits crisis, but presents no change whatsoever to the perception of these individuals. They assume that all women are less likely to understand, but even if that's true, all the more government should do something about it because it's contributing to the gender inequality that's happening in the status quo. Mind you, it's even in the UN Millennium Development Goals to improve lowering gender gaps, and these scholarships are a way in order to promote that kind of change. We need to answer a question. Why aren't there many women in sciences, even if they're not banned from entering engineering, even if they're not banned from going to science? That's because founding on the traditional norms of that certain state or that certain country, most are founded on traditional gender roles. For example, like nurses are women, engineers are men. But we have actually went to a point where we have a trend of the rights to empowerment, but we still have a problem with pushing women into the doors, ladies and gentlemen, and giving them and making that opportunity available to them and incentivizing them along the way to assure that their presence is there and participation is there and the impact will follow. But how to change perception actually? That's why this discussion on compelling companies is actually contributed by side-closing government. Because the moment that you create a law, it enforces ideas for actual application. It changes perception of culture and traditional norms, and laws put feet into principles. What is the example of the success of laws compelling people that change their behavior? In 1970s, when women were given the right to vote, not all men supported this, but the law compelled and then deepened this, and therefore it created presence and participation and later on the acceptance of women as equals of men in terms of that certain arena. It's an example of how mandated laws pave the way for opportunities and change, and that's also favor us to compel certain companies to take this certain action, ladies and gentlemen. You need to understand that there's great value the moment that you attach the law to a principle in this case, and not merely rely on individuals like females who continue to oppress themselves by their own views and opinions to people. So that's why the law is there in order for you to create more accessibility for these individuals. Just like how Malaysia created really in creating educational accessible to females. Just goes to show the moment you make something into a law, certain cultural norms that are really harmful are starting to break down. And certain norms and certain positive norms, like for example, perceiving women as equals, become more normal in society. That's why through these scholarships, ladies and gentlemen, we provide a positive reinforcement towards those individuals, giving them benefit. For example, benefits are necessarily that bad. If you work, ladies and gentlemen, but you're working for benefits, you're working for bonuses. Therefore, it just proves the principle that the moment you are reinforced positively, more likely you're gonna act better in that certain area, and more likely you're gonna entice personally go into that field and explore your capabilities rather than you just maintaining your self-oppression, ladies and gentlemen, if that oppression is not actually already occurred outside the country. We told you, ladies and gentlemen, that this benefits the companies because by your school of workers perform better and improving transfers of economic crisis, ladies and gentlemen. You create innovation, diversity among those individuals. You help women and men. You raise the mindset of diversity. And we're not necessarily putting too much benefit on the women because we're also assuring that equal number of men are also there. That's what makes this important. Because in order for you to succeed, in order for a company to succeed, an opportunity must be there at the beginning.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, the notion of championing humanity irrespective of gender is a notion that we have supported long before Emma Watson gave her famous speech. Because we were arguing, at the point of which it shouldn't be tied to one particular gender or taking a position of extreme and being on the extreme end of creating a policy that says that your definition of success must be dependent on what gender you come from. What does closing opposition support in this debate? We support a world in which individuals of a meritorious position being able to access the skill sets that they want, as well as the positions that they want, irrespective of their gender. We'll be very happy to support the ability for both genders to have access to education in like state institutions, as well as like encouraging females as well as males to enter fields that are not predominantly governed by a particular gender, as well as we think that we want to support reading rhetoric from a young age. Therefore, we'll be very happy to support policy in which we tell schools that you shouldn't tell people that they have to enter a particular field just because they are from a particular gender. I'm going to be talking about three things in my speech. Firstly, I'm going to do away with this idea of meritocracy and why we don't think candidates exist under that side of the house. Secondly, I'm going to be talking about the field in itself and how you delegitimize certain rhetoric that exists within that field. Lastly, I'm going to talk about why the state can't and shouldn't compel corporations to enact this policy. But before that, one rebuttal to close the government. If you listen to the entirety of government in this debate, their policy extends insofar as getting that person into that position without being able to analyze the consequences of being in that position, as well as the transition of change that are willing to agree with this entire. Because we agree that even though you may get a person into that position of power, how does people react in that particular regard, or how do people perceive women being in that position to begin with? We think this nuance was missing in this debate. So first, in response to closing government, they say that we better encourage people to enter the door because the doors are already open. Firstly, we will argue that this strategy of self-oppression, I don't know where this exists, right? Because we live in the 21st century where women are often encouraged to feel self-efficient and not self-sufficient in this environment. Secondly, we will argue that there is a large majority of females right now that live in the status quo that don't like the idea of being tagged to success that is dependent upon the idea of gender. That's why oftentimes females often argue that my ability to be in this position of power is because of my skills independent of what gender I am from, ladies and gentlemen. But even if this is true, right, we don't think that this justifies the entirety of this policy being imposed onto all corporations, ladies and gentlemen. Because we are arguing that our categorization of women as well as men that exist in status quo that want different things as well as want to participate in different skills and industries. What we think this policy does is that often you peg a particular industry as being the end-all be-all standard of success, and if you are not within this particular field, you are not considered a valuable employee. Lastly, on this idea that laws should be utilized to cultivate change, we agree that this is true. What is missing in this particular argumentation is that oftentimes in the past, when the legislation was utilized to quick change, often the change that you want to translate is a universal right, i.e. the right to vote, the right to access property, as well as the right to access education. What is specific in today is that this is a specific industry that requires a specific amount of skill set, ladies and gentlemen, that does not translate every single individual just because they are from that particular gender. So first, let's do away with this idea of meritocracy, ladies and gentlemen. Firstly, we will argue that meritocracy doesn't necessarily exist under that side of the house. Because the premise of government is that there's not enough women, we don't get to see enough of them in positions of power, ladies and gentlemen. This is why my point of information was extremely important. The ability for you to want to create the ability to see that there are legitimate women in this position requires a visceral impact of the particular policy. This means that you need to allow for a business stimulus to exist within that particular field in order to show people that are more women in positions of power. What does this mean? This means that companies are oftentimes will just take everyone that comes in because we need to fulfill a particular quota in order to ensure their company is considered fit by the state. What we think that outcome this particular policy does is that companies can now forcibly deny the ability to allow women to rise to positions of power in sector. Because we think right now, you don't have to promote women to upper echelons of a particular company because companies cannot often rely on the rhetoric that we have enough women working in our force anyway, therefore we don't need to elevate to a higher which you can evaluate a person based on their merit. Often this rhetoric of merit becomes diluted in the gentleman's household. This leads me to my second part about breaking the perception of male-dominated fields. We think that under that side of the house, this argument only extends insofar as there are no women in STEM to begin with. This is not true, and I'm going to provide a dearth of examples in gentlemen. First, you have individuals like Laura Hensley, who is a breakthrough researcher in green technology, or a group of female scientists and few graduates that had a breakthrough research that killed off cancer cells. But one of the cases, like most prominent mathematician being a female, ladies and gentlemen. We think that if this perception is really as strong as they want to make it out to be, you don't do anything to rectify that rhetoric. Why? Because as opposed to an objective metric of evaluation, i.e. how good you are, or how much can you contribute to my company, or how well do you work within the individuals within my field, you let a subjective consideration that is evaluated based on an unchangeable identity that is beyond your particular control. We think that standing out becomes complicated. Your success is often not attached to the idea of your gender, and your evaluation is insofar as your particular gender. The thing about subjective rhetoric like this, ladies and gentlemen, is that it's easily rebuttable at the point which the discussion about equality comes in. The outcome is, firstly, you skew the discussion. As opposed to evaluating how good that work is, you have to consider the gender of that person first in order for us to move to a point of discussion, whereas can we evaluate your successes or not? First, secondly, we will argue that this house the first movers within the STEM industry. These are people who are legitimately within this position of power because they achieve success as well as having this skill set, ladies and gentlemen. We think these are individuals that are in a position that we legitimately like and that we legitimately appreciate because these are people who become points of references as to what constitutes success. We think these are individuals who can utilize the narrative that I got here, irrespective of my gender, or I got here because of my skill, ladies and gentlemen. What this policy does is that it ties them to the label of being an opportunist or being a tokenistic position, ladies and gentlemen. We don't think there's strength in numbers, there's strength in power, and power comes insofar as you can gain respect and gain respect, ladies and gentlemen. This policy removes the ability first to respect those individuals because the evaluation is a subjective consideration of who are there because of their gender. Secondly, because this is the end all be all evaluation, ladies and gentlemen. It helps other people who want to opt into legitimate choices, i.e. humanities. We're not going to say everyone should be a cat and be a babysitter, but we think that at this point, people can often run the rhetoric. You are not as successful because you didn't take the opportunity of opting into that scholarship as opposed to doing something like teaching, ladies and gentlemen. Lastly, corporations have the right to self-determine what they want to do, i.e. their higher policies, ladies and gentlemen. The only way in which the state can mitigate this particular respect is when the interests coincide with the companies, i.e. ensuring that discrimination doesn't come in, ensuring that you allow a safe working environment, i.e. sexual harassment. We don't think that there is a metric of evaluation that can allow for states to impose their values onto these corporations. We're very powerful in this.
Ladies and gentlemen, the main problem with this debate is that it's not about giving equal opportunities to women in society, but it is also about enforcing the idea of actually trying to jump off the kind of self-oppression that these women are currently experiencing between the gap. I think that the main problem with this debate is how we can necessarily try to help women in combating this form of self-oppression that they've been imposing to themselves, ladies and gentlemen, because of this certain corporate thing that we going that they favor hiring men, for example, or giving scholarship to men, ladies and gentlemen. We think that in this debate, we need to understand how necessarily women already has this burden within them, ladies and gentlemen, to jump off from that particular general rule, ladies and gentlemen. We think that they are correct in telling us that, you know what, we are still opening doors to women, for example, in trying to access STEM scholarship, for example, ladies and gentlemen. But the problem with that is, you're being dismissive to the fact that this women already has this burden to go against your ladies and gentlemen. Like say, for example, why is it my choice to join STEM, ladies and gentlemen? Go against the normative structure that men is the only capable ability to go with these forms of programs, ladies and gentlemen. It gives a certain form of self-oppression to these women. It's very hard for them to go against this form of stereotypes within themselves because we think that it actually portrays an idea of the society that men are actually greater in number compared to women in terms of this program, ladies and gentlemen. Let's say, for example, we think that coming from Wilson, the main argumentation that they have within their side of the house, that you know what, if there is greater equality is being sacrificed within the ground, we think that's necessarily false. Because the moment that you build up certain scholarship to government, you need to take into account that these women, even if they are actually commonly to government, are actually qualified to begin with to be participated in that particular scholarship, ladies and gentlemen. We think that quality is necessary in this issue, ladies and gentlemen, because of this form of self-oppression that they've been experiencing on the ground. Because you cannot expect them that in a male-dominated form of program, for example, such as STEM, that they will go against directly to that form of system. Why is it, ladies and gentlemen, that quality is very much necessary in this issue? For example, let's say, for example, in the first wave of feminism, where they are fighting for suffrage, ladies and gentlemen, we need to take into account that in order for them to garner this certain rights, quality is very much important for them to actually accommodate certain women with certain same experiences, ladies and gentlemen, to go and fight with them, ladies and gentlemen. It's just gives us an understanding that if there is quality, ladies and gentlemen, we kind of invite women to participate into this work programs because we now normalize the structure within society and we now give a certain form of impression that this form of programs is not only limited to a particular gender, but everyone is welcome to all ladies and gentlemen. This says that we can tell us that you know what, there are certain laws which actually protects women or other gender from stereotypes, from discrimination, ladies and gentlemen, within the workforce. But you need to understand that these forms of policies being broken with the policy, ladies and gentlemen, are only possible within that particular corporation, ladies and gentlemen. Because we need to take into account that even if there are certain laws of discrimination, ladies and gentlemen, there are no laws which enable women to participate and go against the social norm that they've been experiencing on the ground, ladies and gentlemen. To take that, we believe that it's very much justified in our side of the house to compel this corporation because since time immemorial, they are the one who's been institutionalizing this gender gaps among workers, ladies and gentlemen. Say, for example, they're favoring men over women because of certain structures, for example, in body, ladies and gentlemen, or in many other stuff, ladies and gentlemen, which actually gives a certain form of pay jobs, for example, and lesser chances to be able to participate into this form of behavior. Now, if we are going to incorporate a kind of system which enforces corporation to actually try to accommodate same people of men and women, for example, into that particular workforce or program, ladies and gentlemen, this just goes to show as to how we're creating a certain form of corporation which go against the type of system that we people say within the ground. We think that in this matter of debate, we're going to necessarily create a form of corporation that will be a factor or an avenue for us to change the behavior and mindset of individuals within the ground, ladies and gentlemen. For so long, we think that corporation itself is the main reason why there are certain gender gaps within the workforce. Because they're trying to institutionalize right now that men are more favorable than women, ladies and gentlemen.
right time right now. It is the right time for us to enable this corporation to make a certain choice that to value women right now as of this age, ladies and gentlemen, as to go against the kind of system of actually sacrificing other works of women just to make sure that there is a high equality with men favoring their companies in particular areas.
So your policy is environment, you spend in all your central success. How your policy change behaviors for other women who don't engage in sex, who do believe that there are choices like elsewhere.
Ladies and gentlemen, the main reason why a lot of women will consider, I will just go to stay at home because this is the best that I can do. It's the same process which reinforces our idea, ladies and gentlemen, that that particular idea or mentality is being institutionalized for women because we are a form of gender role, a general rule that this job is always for men, ladies and gentlemen. The reason why we're trying to make a 50-50 in our proposal is to make sure that it enables women to understand that this form of programs are also catered for women, ladies and gentlemen. Let's say, for example, even if women are not bad to actually go participate in military, for example, or in police officers, ladies and gentlemen, it teaches us that these jobs are still accommodated for men, ladies and gentlemen. The reason why we're incorporating equality is for us to enable certain portion of that particular women, ladies and gentlemen, to take into account that our presence, participation in decision making in this form of jobs are very necessary for us to necessarily try to achieve certain equality and for us to necessarily destroy certain general rule that has been happening on the ground. With all these reasons, we think that closing government gives you an idea why certain staff oppression is necessary to be destroyed and how a corporation should actively participate in this form of discourse, if you want to necessarily try to go beyond the gap of gender inequality.
Women tend to disempower themselves. That they always believe that somehow they need help, and in the idea and the act of taking that help, women tend to lose more than they expect. The problem with side government is that they haven't necessarily shown you the effects of their policy, rather than just, look, this policy will lead to more women in these kind of fields. But they never did prove to you why this perception is beneficial to women, and even the trickle-down effects it has on other fields of women's engagement. We think that is the big line, because in case of the wholesome extension opposing opposition, that doesn't necessarily engage with the totality of our case. But I'll deal with this debate two issues. First, let's deal with the idea of self-oppression and how laws are meant to regulate society. Psychology talking brought up, and secondly, I'll tell you the natural effects on perception that will happen on site or closing opposition. First, let's deal with self-oppression, right? Because essentially, the first thing we have to deal with this idea is the premise in which it is predicated on, right? Because we don't think that on our standards, on our context, these sort of standards that you might actually have to occur in this book. Because we think that yes, STEM scholarships are available for all, that all scholarships are necessarily free for all, and there isn't a predisposition to naturally that women don't necessarily want to join these fields. For example, Jay gave you a myriad of examples of several women role models who became the natural point of references for women wanting to join these fields. For example, manager, even you are a major in psychology. So we think that what happens right now is necessarily detract this sort of focus from being meritorious to things that are to an immutable characteristic that you cannot change in status quo. So on a first level, we do not think that self-oppression exists on your side, but even if it does exist, we provided through a myriad of ways how we can deal with self-oppression by means of education, by means of true state institutions, by encouraging these people that you can join this STEM industry and making it equal for everyone to join. As opposed to you telling that you need help to join these fields, we think it's a better form of action when everyone has an equal playing field in getting those scholarships in getting those jobs, and that will give, and I'll link that later with how it affects the perception of individuals. But what happens on your side right now is that the evaluation of oppression, how I get rid of oppression, does not necessarily end at it solving my own problems. More than that, you have to deal with how it affects everyone of mankind. For example, in this instance, women. Because if you deal with self-oppression, as I proved later, then it doesn't change perception. But secondly, you delegitimize any other women who participate in other fields. For example, that's the nuance that Jay brought up that he never wanted to engage with. But when you set standards to a field that is perceived where men are dominating and checked, that's where you create the visage that look, you are only successful insofar as you can penetrate a field in which men are considered to be the dominant actors. So therefore, you delegitimize the ability for other individuals to feel empowered when you choose a field in humanities, when they feel they want to be a teacher or even a stay-at-home wife. And even Whip considered this in his speech when he said, look, that is exactly why women will now join, because you view it as something that will peg you to that success. And we don't think that necessarily deals with oppression as a whole. Sure, it might deal with self-oppression, but it doesn't deal with the fact, but that's not a justification in the broader scheme of things. So we don't think that necessarily stands in the way. But lastly, you wanted to talk about the bad effects, the effects of law and why it should shape society. But even if you were to take this argument at face value, you have to look at the perception of which people view whether or not you are helped by law or not. The biggest example we can point to is the affirmative action policy in Malaysia. For example, when you are helped by law, you expect that to create some form of change. People view you as being complacent and being privileged or undeserving of the sort of rights you're given because you're helped by the law. We think that that's better served on our side, where individuals can get in by merit and be able to break those stereotypes using a indicator that's objective and not something that's predetermined by law. And we think that that's the benefit we get on our side in creating oppression. But let's deal with perception, right? Firstly, let's deal with the premise of perception or whether it happens. Because we think it's a problem-solution mismatch on their side. Because they don't deal with the fact, because they have to deal with the initial perception of these policies. Then naturally people will view it as an antagonistic step when you're giving undeserving individuals a scholarship as compared to more adept individuals if you were to argue that men were more adept in this field, right? The reason why this is so is exactly the nuance that Jay brought up, that you need a visceral change. Therefore, you're more likely to take women without necessarily paying attention to the standards of merit they have in comparison to the men. Therefore, you're more likely to take women based on interest rather than actual merit that these men might actually have. But we think in status quo, this premise doesn't stand in the way. Because you have things like free-for-all scholarships, you have things like anti-discrimination laws to vet out like discriminatory policies when it comes to scholarship giving. And this is a equal playing field where everyone can capitalize on and feel empowered, right? But what does it do to perception, even if you buy that premise, right? We think at first then you don't deal with the fact that these women will not be able to, these corporations will have the plausible deniability in making sure that they fulfill this requirement simply by just giving jobs to these women and giving scholarships to these women, not necessarily being able to promote them to the upper echelons because they feel it's antagonizing them. What about this?
Scholarships are given, and you need to get that's a very definition of scholarships. Because there is help needed in order to these individuals. Education and information and giving us scholarships are for the same value that we involve. But we argue that scholarships provide better incentives.
But scholarships as a language should be given to every deserving individual, not pegged to their gender, but rather pegged to whether or not they should be paid for that education. And that's really an objective metric, and we usually use metric, we usually use merit and not gender on the side, right? But what more does it do to the subject? We even think that when you view these individuals as open individuals and only there because the state thinks you should be there, that waters down the rhetoric of me wanting to promote you, but rather the effect it has on women who are already in state. So you lose that sort of things, you lose this sort of power these points of references have, because essentially people view them as only being there just because the state said they should be there. So on a comparative, we think you hurt women within these industries and outside these industries, and we don't think that justifies you simply being able to guide them to the law, which we can already solve on our side. Very proud.
And come back after